Hello everyone, my name is Mad Scorpion and welcome back to Destiny 2 updates. So this time we have the yearly, or let me say Destiny yearly, state of the game update from Joe that typically comes from us every time we have a new year turning over, which, happened just before Witch Queen, happens now, typically. And if you don't know who Joe is, it's basically Joe Blackburn, the game director for Destiny 2, which, in case you didn't know, he's pretty much at the top. So this is, one of the heads of Bungie letting us know what's going on. So there is a lot of talking, and of course there's a lot of that. So there is going to be a lot of summing up in details, and a lot of details what is changing. So there's going to be a lot of that in summaries and that sort of stuff. Now, they made issues address pretty much that the issue is currently they have quality that they like the themes we're going for, but then at the same time things are feeling predictable and don't think that just adding a strike or two to a new thing can exactly work out for the long run, and also believe that there is not enough to do. Possibly they want to address that. So there's 4 main points they want to address. Explaining players' imaginations, bringing challenge back to Destiny, enriching the content, and connecting Guardians. That is 4 big goals leading up to next year's stuff that they're going to try to tackle throughout the year of Lightfall. So, they wanted to start with talking about releases, and they'd start talking about various ways they're trying to enrich the seasonal stuff in various ways. So they do tell us what the next season is, Season of Defiance. Now, they do mention that everything is already wrapped up before this new goal, so don't take everything into account. But one change they're going with is fewer currencies to earn. Basically, Umbrals and Umbral Energies, those are no longer a thing. So, after you have unlocked seasonal focusing, you'll want to focus an engram. You'll just need Glimmer and a seasonal engram. Additionally, these seasonal engrams will be stored at the vendors themselves, not in our inventory. So our inventories will only be Prime and Eververse engrams, and maybe any other new engrams if any others are introduced soon. We also get some art of Season of the Defiant, which after looking at it, obviously Marasov Cabal, so it's going to be themed in sort of stuff, and we see a lot of Awoken technology. See a seasonal bow, see a seasonal what I believe is fusion rifle, and some cool, or very cool looking Awoken style armor as well. Now, there's 2 places that could be, obviously, first one is EDZ, the second place is the Throne World, which could focus on that, which could be Mara striking back at Zevil Wrath, who is taking over the Throne World. But the only thought of that is that looks like the Dark City in the background, but aside from that, if that is the EDZ, that means that the darkness is coming to Earth as well, which I'm excited to see where this goes in addition to all the Lightfall stuff, because from the season's way it seems the way they have it is they introduce the season, or they introduce the season right after the campaign. So like with Season of the Risen, after we took out Savathun, then all the PsyOps stuff was happening, and we had the fights on the various planets, including Earth. They also changed it so that you won't need, like this season, you had the Seraph key codes that allowed you to access the chest. You won't need that anymore. We're getting more like chest keys that we had in the original Destiny 1 Nightfalls, which are dropping from seasonal activities, which are dropped from ritual activities that can allow you to unlock the chest at the end, which is going to be simpler. And while that is happening, there is a chance you might not have a key in the end, but they're also updating it so there's more general loot coming out without needing a key. So while the keys give you bonus rewards, they won't be the only rewards that are meaningful. The original chest will also be, helpful. Now, on top of those changes, they can expect fewer vendor upgrades. Basically, they're trying to limit the amount of upgrades you have to get through the thing. You might see a few same things, but since there's going to be a lot less currencies, then there's going to be a lot less need for those upgrades. So hopefully we won't need to spend so much time working on the season for random upgrades. Now, after Season of the Dines, we also get the launch of the second season, Season of the Deep right here. Now, they also don't tell us anything from that, but at the same time, it will also no longer feature a vendor upgrade paradigm like we have seen so far with seasons at the helm, and that'll also be true for the following season. This doesn't mean that players will see or never see them again, but we're going to try to create a varied experience. So we'll see different ways of upgrading the vendors and different things to seasonal, let's say, just vendors. Now, that will also go to the content that players find and the movement-to-movement gameplay for later seasons. Both Season of the Deep and Season 22 is to create fresh new experiences like when we first unveiled the Shattered Realm and Season Lost or debut Battlegrounds. So we won't be seeing, hopefully, just more of the planets we're on with a little bit of a door that was never known before. So we'll hopefully be seeing new activities, kind of like the way that Heist Battlegrounds would have been different if we didn't already have the PsyOps Battlegrounds, kind of. Now, they're also talking about themes, and they enjoy the themes that have been going through and believe that the Lightfall's collection of themes will be varied and fresh, just like last year, so that's always good. Then they also mentioned the addition of Guardian ranks, so there's that, which is going to be alongside the build crafting and loadouts and all the stuff that we're going to be getting with Destiny 2, so there's going to be a lot different ways to tell when somebody is ahead of the game as opposed to, you know, just the number besides their name. And they also talk about some stuff for weapon crafting. So here is some of the changes we're going to see expected. So to create independent chases for both crafted and non-crafted weapons starting with Lightfall, fewer of our total weapons will be craftable, and more of our weapons with long-term sources will get value from random perk rolls. So less crafted weapons. I imagine instead of like 6 for a new season and 6 for the new raid, we might see 4 for a new season, 6 for the new raid, and maybe a few foundry weapons are just not craftable, something like that. And they will also allow random rolled weapons to go toe-to-toe with crafted weapons in Lightfall. In case you don't know, basically, non-crafted weapons starting with new raid adepts will have the ability to be enhanced. Enhancing allows your dropped weapon, basically, to start leveling up using mementos and gain access to both enhanced and perks and intrinsic properties, but the enhanced version of the perks and masterworks that are already on the version of the weapon that you are enhancing. Basically said, you can take a random rolled weapon, like for instance, I had a 4 times the charm Focused Fury Cataclysmic. Instead of having that and then the enhanced version of that I made through crafting, I can work on the random rolled and enhance everything on there, but I can't pick and choose perks. I can improve those perks to compensate and be online with craftable ones. I'm just not picking everything. So if you have a natural god roll land nowadays, you don't have to be like, well, it's not the crafted version, I'm going to have to make the enhanced god roll anyway. So enhancing that, like I said, start leveling up, oh, that's what I just said. Simply said, time and resources enhancing allows you to take the random rolled weapon you've obtained and enhance its existing roll to match full power of a crafted weapon, like I just said. They're going to initially roll it out with the Lightfall raid adepts at the launch this season of the Deep, which I believe is going to be, it might be the raid from Lightfall, it might be a reprised raid from the future, hard to say, but it's hopefully going to be with us the second season of the year. Long term, we wanted to expand this functionality to most of our non-crafted weapon drops, where there are some technical hurdles to solve first. For crafted weapons, we have additional changes planned. You'll never see deep sight on a weapon unless it's something that you need a pattern to go on, which is something they tried to already introduce. Basically, if a red border is a red border, means you can craft it, and is valuable. And targeting in Season of the Deep, we're also adding a mechanic to activate deep sight on any craftable weapon that you do not have the pattern for. So hopefully that removes the issue of old guns as well as new guns being so hard to get craftable sometimes. I wanted to tackle one more thing. Expanding player imagination gives players a little more of a sneak peek into what's coming before it comes out. So hopefully that Bungie has heard us in the aspect of we don't like to get seasons dropped on us exactly, or something like that. They also wanted to talk about bringing challenge back to Destiny. So they wanted to spend last year unveiling Subclass 3.0 to rework building in a weird way. But the results of these came with more compelling RPG stats, but is a little bit too easy in everything else. So they're hitting this in 2 ways, tuning our abilities and tuning the enemies. So abilities, of course, they're working with a lot of stuff. Going into Strand, we're going to have Strand as an additional thing, but they are talking about how they're reworking abilities, like how the resilience nerf, you might not have more total resilience resistance, but it'll be a little bit easier to spec and not require it. Like I said in one of my videos before, if we have 40 resistance now, the top of that resilience might be 30, but instead of being 2, 4, 8, 10, 16 resilience, it's a constant 4, 6, it's constant 4, 8, 12, 16, to give it an example. And they're not adjusting things more so. Obviously, they're improving, changing the way those mods count, or how they... Awesome screenshot there, by the way. But they're also, with the Buildcraft updates, builds are going to be way more accessible. The broad community is going to have way better access to absolutely murderous builds. So hopefully the adjustments they're already taking to ability energy is going to be, enough of a stabilizer so that things... Because obviously we already have 3.0s, and builds have been getting ridiculous in terms of resistance and output. But at the same time, it has made things too easy, and hopefully these changes to abilities and tuning can help that. Now, at the same time, they're also technically buffing enemies. Now, this season, they mentioned, when they introduced the Heist Battlegrounds, they locked the light level of everything in there. So, while usually there would be a cap on everything a player could do. You couldn't be so high on light that you could snap your fingers and everything gets dusted. But basically, they set a difficulty modifier that you're just a tiny bit behind current with like the heist battlegrounds. They're implementing this elsewhere in like the Vanguard playlist and some patrol zones, Neo Muna, and variety of other areas. So now there's going to be a slightly more difficult, just general feel to everything. It's not going to be like enemies are going to be unstoppable everywhere. It's just that things are going to be a little bit behind light, so things won't be so easy to absolutely just go through the entire time. So, like I said, though, the Vanguard Ops is going to be the average place that people approach this. And, of course, the approach to power and difficulty is going to be present when players are running Neo Muna, like I said. But they don't want to feel like the game is permanently difficult. So, hopefully, this helps make the up-and-coming stuff engagingly difficult, not too difficult, if that phrase works. Now, like I said, they might have noticed that we've been adjusting power over the last few seasons, planning on taking out even more experiments of that too. There's been some major issues with power and how it prevents players from seeing some of the best content, like they just adjusted GMs to allow people more access to them. However, to understand more about how our changes can be improved, you want to keep tweaking power settings over Lightfall. Entirely possible they can rework artifact power in the end. Some of these tweaks might be found in the back end with a little transparency to the average Guardian, while others find it front and center. For example, when Lightfall launches, we will have a power climb that is very similar to that of the Witch Queen, but later in Season of the Deep, we don't plan on raising the power or pinnacle cap at all. So we're probably going to have, like just heard there, we're going to have the usual 50 to 60, maybe even 100 power we got to jump for a DLC. But after that, we might not even have the usual 10 pinnacle points that we have to gain a season, possibly. Just so that we don't have to keep going up and up until our power is literally 2,000. Now, they also wanted to talk about some ways they are adjusting stuff and improving content. One of the ways they talk about that is engaging with the PvP crowd, which, at the same time, still say this, Crucible in-game or in lore is literally training, so But, I mean, they're adjusting ways, they're adding modes, reworking a bunch of modes, adding back some maps they've talked about, but they are also talking about a interesting mode they talked about, which is right here, Checkmate Controlled. Basically, it's going to shift bullets, ammo availability, everything in the sandbox, which the way they explain it is that if there is one enemy that the only way they have been able to kill you is the Solid Blade Barrage, they might not be able to do it, like, constantly or something like that. They don't give us a lot of details. They just know that everything is just going to be head-switched, possibly. Now, they also talk about other things that going into a variety of novel game modes and reining in power for people in PvP, because while there's going to be new comp, there's PvP, they don't want a variety of other things. They do mention Arrival of Meltdown in Season of the Deep, which is allegedly, I think, a new mode. Also, a new Vex map in Season 22. Return of Citadel from the season before Final Shape, so a variety of new Crucible stuff each season. But at the same time, they don't want matchmaking to go rampant, because while they do want to balance the trade-off between fair matches and good connections, currently it is balancing more towards fair matches than good connections. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff going out there and a lot of reworks to encourage PvP. Oddly enough, they're trying to make PvP social more social somehow. Then they're also going into exotic missions. Now, if you don't know what exotic missions are, if you remember Presage, the Hawkmoon mission, Seraph Shield, those are essentially unique missions that are tied to an exotic quest and an exotic drop. They're implementing a exotic mission rotator, like the way we have dungeons and raids currently. Which, currently at the start, we'll only have Presage, Vox Obscura, and Operation Seraph Shield. If you don't remember what those are, the missions from Dead Man's Tale, Dead Messenger, and Revision Zero, fresh this season. Currently, that will be the only ones in the rotator in Season 22 specifically, but with this framework implemented, there is hopefully, you know, more space to improve. So they leave it open-ended because, you know, obviously there's way more exotic missions. We could get the Hawkmoon mission back, we could get Whisper, 0 Hour, possibly Destiny 1 exotic missions if they're bold enough. So, there we go. They also want to talk about refreshing strikes. Now, currently, I'm sure as you know, there are some strikes that are here from the year 1 of Destiny 2 that are, you know, major outclassed. If you've ever played Lake of Shadows, that boss was super easy to melt, even in GMs. Inverted Spire, most people, when they're in their average strike, can kill him as soon as he shows up, not even going through his typical 3 immune phases, which is why they're adjusting some things. So in the Vanguard Ops playlist, they're going to begin by refreshing Lake of Shadows and Arms Dealers. Both activities have had their objectives and encounters reimagined and upgraded to match the current combat engagement levels of some of the more recent strikes entries, such as Lightblade and Proving Grounds. In addition, they're also taking strikes that have not been updated recently, such as Exodus Crash and Inverted Spire, like I just mentioned, and dramatically reducing their presence in the playlist while eliminating them from Nightfall rotations. Which, that's a curious thing, because Exodus Crash, that was a curious Nightfall and even a tense GM, but I can see that for Inverted Spire. That's a bit of a snooze fest with only a few tight moments, but you know. These strikes will be available for direct launch still, but until they get brought up for the engagement parity with some of the most recent Vanguard content, they will not show up as frequently as part of ritual gameplay. So we might not see some strikes as often next season, but other ones are going to be, you know, reworked entirely. Then, aside from that, they're also going to be updating how Battlegrounds integrate with Vanguard Ops. Alongside Lightfall, this has been mentioned before, PsyOps Battlegrounds from Season of the Risen and Heist Battlegrounds from this season are going to be added to the Vanguard Ops playlist. So at least 6 new things, I think, is the variety in there. So we're going to have 6 new contents to go through in Vanguard stuff. But they're also adding a selection of Battlegrounds as Nightfalls, which initially sounds fun. Because seasonal content, Nightfall modifiers, a more difficult version. We've already had a difficult version, but we can go even farther. Interesting. But my worries is that these are going to be Grandmasters. The only reason I'm worried about this is because a lot of the seasonal stuff, Battlegrounds, all that, there is extremely enemy-dense moments. In GMs, even after what's it called? Match game was, you know, reduced and easier to accommodate for. In GMs, it's gonna take some very, very high tier builds of ad clear and outburst damage that can handle some of these ads. So that might be the one thing I'm worried about in terms of the up and coming adjustments to difficulty, because while that obviously there's gonna be some more difficulty there, that could possibly be too much. Although I say that, I am of course, like I said, because there's some weird things here. Because personally, I'm Conqueror 7. I've done Conqueror since it's been able to be gilded. But at the same time, I can't solo Spire of the Watcher. I've soloed everything else, but I can't solo this one. So, you know, it's weird things. Then also they want to look, as they get further away from Lightfall in our season schedule, they wanted to make some targeted changes to ritual-based content and obviously things like that. So this will include changes such as the initial source of obtaining exotic armor being lost sectors and put them back into core rituals, no longer asking players to earn all 3 of the ritual pursuit weapons or ornaments and seasonal challenges, and allowing players to earn new rewards as a part of their weekly challenges by playing part of content of their choice, not just whatever comes around and what Bungie picks. Rebalancing objectives and rewards is going to be a slow burn over the year to Lightfall, so expect little by little, don't expect a big change initially. But they're dedicating a significant amount of development time towards core ritual-based season. So, while this season will have plenty of new activity and story content, we want to take the time right before the final shape to crisp up core rituals and pursuits. So the random stuff that isn't related will hopefully get a lot better. They also talk about connecting Guardians, which is just generally the ways that they're introducing how people work. So combinations are an icebreaker, and if you've ever played Overwatch 1, do you recall this person was a really good tank, or this person was the best healer, this person led the charge, they were the best skilled? That is basically coming to Destiny, where you can get accommodations that are specifically around, like, trials, but then other areas get raid and dungeon-based accommodations, and eventually accommodations will become a history for what you've been and what you've done. But basically, it's a way that people can see, if they just see me on the field, if I have done the raid dozens of times, that we'll see something that says, this guy is a raider. He can help, maybe. And on the topic of Accommodation Center, those are the highest level of Guardian ranks will have proven to folks that are consistently appreciated by others in the community, so people will know who the eager-edged sword griefers are, and people will know who's actually helpful. And over the few weeks, of course, they've been playing in Heist Battlegrounds and talking about how they get matched with a pair of folks that have a lot of synergy with, and absolutely crushing things, and this has come with a slight sense of regret that I'm not just living a few weeks in the future and able to pass along a couple of accommodations to show my thanks. Basically, they want to talk, there's a lot of stuff coming up to show people that they good at the game in a weird way. But like I said, these accommodations is approving your teammates. They also wanted to expand the way that people talk. Now, they do talk about how they want to change the game-wide text channels from opt-in to opt-out. What this means is more players will be naturally put into the text channel, so you don't have to hit the button to be included in it, in case you don't know anyway. But, they would like to continue to invest in ways to talk, better chat moderation, filtering, and bigger features like speech to text, hopefully, in the future. So they're working on ways to communicate. They're not going to try and, lock it in. So the only way you can communicate is text in weird other ways, but they are definitely expanding the paths there. They also, of course, talked about the in-game LFG that they're really excited for people to come into because, the way that LFGs are seasonal based, it's hard to do sometimes, and sometimes there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't work and disconnects, and trying to find an LFG on Discord is a little bit hard when you enter Discord, you're talking, and it's like, oh, by the way, what's everyone's Bungie ID? Hopefully an in-game thing will be a little bit easier, and of course you can keep track of it in here for website and socials for any details. And of course, like I said, these are some of the things that are looking to update generally. Now, they are pretty confident in the state of the game in terms of general sandbox, what it seems like, content, themes and stuff, and everything. But like I just to readdress, weapon crafting is going to be way simplified. Random rolls are going to be enhanced in a way. Then we're also getting a variety of different content introduced in weird ways. Some stuff is coming back into rotation, like the exotic mission rotations. Hopefully we're going to see stuff come out of there. We're going to be seeing lots of new adjustments to the seasonal things. We won't have a seasonal modifier, or let's say the season won't be, hey, new season, new vendor, new set of upgrades. We'll have a variety of different ways that the season can be invested in, let's say. So you might not always have a vendor that has a list of upgrades. You might have something different for season, but that does not mean that we are losing that. And of course, then a variety of other lots of things in case you wanted to go back and read it. Of course, like I said, this is a very long article from Joe. There is a lot of talking and there's a lot more finite details, but this has been a general summary of everything to have been talked about from Mr. Joe Blackburn. Thank you again for the update, Mr. Joe. And I will see you all in the next video, which will likely be the finale of Season of the Seraph.